A very good evening to you, everyone who is warmly welcomed here to the IMC, the International Medical Campus. The IMC or the International Medical Campus is a one-stop destination for every student need who is looking forward to get a medical university admissions after his O-levels or after his A-levels. Now today we have here a very prestigious individual, Dr. Udai Kandalama, who will be discussing few things with me for the benefits of students as well as parents. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening to you.
Yes. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you.
So, Dr. Udai Kandalama is one of our past graduates from one of the most prestigious universities we have. Namely, it's called the Vitebsk State Medical University in Belarus. So, I'm going to open the discussion basically regarding this university to our prestigious doctor who is a passed out graduate from this university. So, Dr. Udai, taking back your history, passing towards so many years ago when you just got to know about this university, probably tell me honestly, did you know about Belarus or were you confused where on earth Belarus is?
Absolutely right. I mean, I had no idea. I've never heard of Belarus before. Geographically, I had absolutely no idea where it was until someone actually mentioned it to me.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't know much about it.
Right. So then you get an admission from this university and you go to this country. How do you think? What do you feel about the country?
Well, it's a bit of a story where I had finished my A-levels and I was wondering what I wanted to do.
And you schooled that, doctor?
So I went to Ananda.
Right.
I was born in the UK.
I
did some of my primary schooling in the UK.
Right.
And then we moved. As I finished my A-levels, I was planning to go back to the UK.
Okay.
To pursue higher studies. Essentially, I wanted to do my London A-levels and go to a UK medical university. That was a period of time where I actually got to know about VSMU before I went there.
Okay.
And that's how I really ended up in Vitebsk.
Right.
Yeah,
so soon as you stepped into this country which you have not visited ever before, Belarus, how did you feel till the journey you went up to the university?
Well, I thought it was pleasant. My journey up there. There were a few people that I knew, right, which was nice, and I was keen to explore the country. Obviously, it was a different geographical area to what I've never visited there before. So I was thinking of making the best out of that opportunity.
Excellent. Now, after you entered the university, what have you got to say about the facilities which were prevailing in the university in the first 3 years which you were studying the preclinical subjects?
I personally lived in the hostel.
Right.
And it was a mixture of all foreign students and local students, all medical students. So yeah, I took it as an opportunity for getting to know the country, and I was living at the time in the hostels.
Right.
There's one particular on Frunze Avenue, right next to the university, and it was essentially a one-bedroom flat with a bedroom and a toilet and a bathroom.
Okay.
With running hot water.
Right.
With heaters, and they do have a central heating system because, as you know, Belarus has nuclear power,
yes,
so they've got plenty of power to power up their heating systems, right, which was very good because throughout the year with their climate changes, they have a very efficient and essential heating system. So you know, the rooms were very comfortable. I didn't have any particular issues, and I felt that it was very adequate for someone who was a student.
Right. So now, after you started classes, how was the faculty treating you, and how qualified are they also in their background of teaching medicine? What have you got to say about that?
So when I first went there and I started off my studies, I had to do a 1 year's preparatory program,
right,
in Russian, because I studied in Russian. So the course consisted of learning grammatically correct Russian, reading, writing and speaking.
Right.
And also along with that, we had some of the A-level subjects that we did, like physics,
chemistry,
biology, exactly. And the difference was that obviously it was in Russian. So the first day of my studies consisted of me being in a preparatory course. I do understand that currently, the students study in English, but at that time, I chose to speak and write in Russian and to follow the course in Russian. So I had to go through an intense period of 1 year where we learned Russian, and we did other subjects like biology and physics.
So was it easy to learn Russian, or was it difficult? Because some students are very reluctant to learn a foreign language.
Well, I'm naturally quite an inquisitive person, and any new challenge I enjoy. Doing Russian was one of the best things I probably ever did in my life, because it's handy in my clinical practice in the UK now, because we have a lot of Eastern Europeans living in the UK, and some of them can't speak English very well, and I actually communicate with them in Russian. So I made my decision at the time to study in Russian, and I found it fairly easy. I didn't have any difficulties. By the end of a couple of months, I was walking around, having conversations with people without much difficulty.
Right, that's great. So a lot of people think that learning Russian is quite hard. So with this, we understand that the English medium program, which Dr. Udai has been studying through, a spoken Russian context is being taught. Dr. Udai, the preparatory program which you talked about is happening in this same campus at the IMC in English medium. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great opportunity, because 10 years ago, if that was there, I would have jumped at doing something like that. My experience was great too. So, but it's definitely positive.
Great. So, when you started your first year and until the third year, how was your faculty treating you? How was the lectures? Are they very student friendly? Are they student oriented? How strict are they with the attendance of the students, especially?
Well, I was in a group of a mixture of foreign students from India, Nepal, Lebanon and Syria, and we had a small group of about 7 to 8 students.
Right, 7 to 8, that's it?
Yes.
It's very easy for you to probably concentrate on your studies if it's a small group.
Exactly, and that's something that I actually genuinely felt at the time.
Because most of the other universities, they boast about the number of students, and to see they have about 100, 150, 200 in a classroom, and you were in the Vitebsk State Medical University in a very small classroom.
Absolutely.
So what were the advantages you had?
I think the advantage, particularly in the first 1 to 2 years, was that you were still getting proficient in the language. If you had any difficulties, you could one-to-one have that attention from your supervisor, your teacher, and they were able to know you on a personal level, so that they could look at parts of you which were inadequate perhaps, and give you good advice on. So that was very, very important.
Great. Now, a lot of people think that since it's a government university, we don't have to always attend classes, but we've heard that they are very strict with the attendance. What about it?
And they were pretty tough. I mean, it was like going back to school again.
Really?
Where they had a big register, and they'd check whether you were there or not. If you weren't there, you'd have to go and give yourself an explanation to the dean, or the dean's office at least.
Right.
And that was quite tedious and difficult. So they were very serious about your attendance and whether you were making the best out of that opportunity.
Right, great. Now, while this happens, a lot of people think that doctors are all about going to a library and studying books. They don't do any extracurricular activities. What were the extracurricular activities probably you would have experienced in the Vitebsk State Medical University?
That's interesting that you say that. You always think of doctors as being in the library and
bookworms, typically.
Bookworms, and sort of sleeping and eating and bathing there. But that's really not the case. And the more extracurricular things you do, I think it gives you such a great idea about how to interact with people. and communicate. Communication is one of the most important parts as a doctor to have. And you asked me about extracurricular activities that we had.
What have you done? And
well, at the time in university, they had a swimming team.
okay.
I'm a swimmer myself,
Okay.
and I used to swim for school also. So I had an interest in that, and I joined. Went to the pools and did all that. Ice hockey was another sport that was quite prominent there, and Belarus is known for their ice hockey teams. It was something that was there, and local students obviously went forward with that, but it wasn't something that I personally tried. And I understand that now they've got soccer, which is played under floodlights, which sounds like a great idea. There's also a cricket tournament, particularly among the Asian students. Although we had spectators from local students, but never anyone who joined us. I myself played a few times for those tournaments. So those were the sort of sports activities that was available in university. But apart from that, we had cultural events on particularly times of the year. That would be a collection of various countries, along with the local students again, and there'd be activities such as singing and dances, and any other activity where they felt they could perform in. I took part in those and really enjoyed them. At one point, as I was getting quite senior, I was even coordinating those things, which I quite enjoyed. So there are plenty of stuff that you can do in uni.
I think the Vitebsk State Medical University has got plenty of stuff to do, so much that you might have a lot of memorable events probably from those days. Now, doctor, while the student is pursuing his studies, what advice would you give for medical graduates to sharpen their knowledge and to be up to the level of a competent doctor while they are learning this?
Well, I can certainly talk from my own experiences and the experiences I had from my colleagues who were studying with me. My approach towards studying medicine was knowing what my goals were. I had a very clear idea.
Focused on it.
A very clear idea as to what was going to happen after 6 years of studying. I knew that I had to face foreign exams, maybe USMLE, the PLAB, or Act 16 itself. And my curiosity was around finding out what sort of things I needed to do to pass that. And I was also aware at the time, obviously, that I was studying in Russian, and I was very keen on keeping myself up to date with English literature, medical literature. And I always kept an open ear, an open eye onto what was happening, what other medical graduates in my position were doing from universities which were not in Belarus, particularly in the UK.
And specifically, how many hours do you think you would be studying after your academic hours doing in the university?
It really depended on the day, on the week, and on whether we had any exams coming up. I must say honestly that I didn't study on a daily basis. I would do my work in university, come back, wind down, get to know my friends initially. That was something that I remember doing very clearly, because there are people from so many parts of the world. You sit and study together, so you just want to get to know your group and get to know other people who are living in the hostel. Just getting friendly with your environment. That was something that I did.
So doctor, with this brilliant faculty which has a lot of PhD qualified lecturers, how attentive are they to cooperate to teach medical students their subjects? What did you experience? Anything good with the lecturers?
Yeah, well, my experience was really positive. I had a particular keen interest in certain subjects, and the teachers that I had really connected when they knew that a student had a particular interest. They knew when a student had read a lot about it, and genuinely had made an effort during class, and the experience that I had was very positive. And I say that because they'd stay out of their hours of work sometimes. I mean, I've had teachers where after our classes they'd stay back if you asked a question, and just spend their time with you, explaining things, and you could tell that they were very enthusiastic because you were enthusiastic.
Right.
So I really feel it's something that if you're enthusiastic enough and you want to be focused and you really want to know, the teachers will react very, very positively, and if anything, they welcome that.
They help you a lot.
Absolutely.
Right. So in this journey, you finished the first 3 years,
yes,
and now you go to your clinical trainings. So what is the experience and the exposure you get, especially in a state hospital in Vitebsk, about this?
Once again, I thought it was really good in the sense of practical skills. I remember in my third year, when we had just been introduced into sort of hospitals, we had a period where we had to spend a night or two in a hospital,
okay,
and follow the resident doctor,
okay,
and see what they were doing. So it was me and one of my group friends. We spent a night, and we got to know the staff, we got to know some of the doctors, and then during the day when we had clinical classes, we'd get to see these people again, and we developed a rapport, okay, to such an extent that they were more than happy to show us certain clinical procedures.
okay.
They were more than happy to teach us those procedures, sometimes even ahead of being taught officially.
Okay.
They'd sit with us, teach us what to do, tell us what to do, and actually go through the practical skills, the procedures, together with them. So by the time we actually got to the actual subject of, okay, doing it, we'd already done some of those things.
Great.
I mean, it was that good.
Right. And when it comes into the dissection, do you all use dummies and videos, or do you like really get exposed to the cadavers?
So when we had pathology,
yeah,
we actually were exposed to the cadavers,
okay,
and I mean, it's not something that you forget that easily, particularly, okay, the smell.
Yeah, for the first day.
Yeah, it's all a bit, wow, am I actually doing this?
Okay.
And then you get used to it, and then it all depends on who your teachers are too.
Oh,
And I think I was lucky. Our teachers were very, very enthusiastic, and they were willing to they knew that you had these difficulties, and they'd work through with you. Same with anatomy, where you had cadavers and you had to dissect and look at the innervation of the body. We went in groups, and
okay,
almost all of our groups had a cadaver
okay,
to work on each of us. Which was fantastic. That's exactly what you needed.
That's great. Now, with regarding to the teaching hospitals, roughly across how many teaching hospitals did you get yourself exposed to?
I think roughly is going to have to be my answer, because I can't remember how many exactly, but I'm probably looking at about 6 to 7 hospitals. And for psychiatry, there was a particularly completely different hospital.
And you get to meet the patients by your own selves?
Absolutely. So we attended ward rounds.
Right.
We'd attended the morning meeting where all the clinicians get together and they talk about the difficult patients they had the night before. They'd talk about difficult operations they'd have to do.
Right.
So we'd attend those meetings.
Right.
Then, like I said, we'd do the ward rounds with our teachers who were the clinicians.
Right.
Then we'd have our classes on the ward itself.
Yes.
Our rooms
Besides
would be
right.
besides literally the patients were on the sides of us, and we'd have a room where we'd go in and actually study.
So, Dr. Udai, what is your exposure in clinical trainings at the Vitebsk State Medical University? Now, do you really get to meet the patients during clinical period, or is it via observations at a distance?
My exposure with patients was brilliant. I mean, it was very hands-on. As I said, we were on the wards itself, and as the class would be going to see a particular thing in a patient, they'd take us to the patients, we'd examine the patients, and it was very hands-on, very direct. We'd be able to get histories from the patients, we'd be able to examine them. There's absolutely no problem with that. I always used to compare that to myself, because I used to go and do clinical attachments in the UK in hospitals, and something particular that I noticed was it wasn't always that easy.
It's not easy there.
To see patients,
Right.
and to get that sort of hands-on experience. But I found it easier in Vitebsk, where I was studying.
Okay. And the clinicals happens in which language? How easy is it to converse in Russian with the patients?
I think one thing you learn in Belarus is, particularly when you're out and about, you learn Russian better because you don't have much of a choice, actually.
Yes, obviously.
Almost all the population speak Russian and Russian only, and you'd be amazed as to how quickly you pick up the language. And knowing myself, I picked up the language within a few weeks to a month. I was already beginning to talk that language. I couldn't believe that I was doing that.
Great.
But I was doing that, and not just me, but my colleagues who were with me. We were all talking it. By the end of 2 or 3 months, we were just fluently talking it.
Great. Probably during your time, I think there was no Facebook. Am I right?
No, there wasn't actually. No.
So today, Doctor, what we have is we experience students who study the language for a couple of months.
Yes.
And they update their statuses on Facebook via Russian language.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now what happens is, Doctor, you went and studied there and you completed, and then you graduate as a successful MD student from the university. Do you still remember that day which you graduated and you wore the cloak, the red and black cloak and everything? Do you still remember that day?
Absolutely. I think most people say that it's your birth, your graduation day, your wedding, and your death that
Yes.
you remember. So I see that like it was yesterday, and it was a fantastic day, lovely summer day in June 2005, I think it was.
Okay.
It was a great day. We had parents, we had our teachers, we had the rector, and it was a great sense of achievement. I think getting a medical degree is getting a higher degree,
Yes.
particularly a medical degree, is a great achievement.
Right. So, Dr. Udai, what have you got to say about safety in a very unknown region like this? Because a lot of parents are concerned about the safety of students, especially girls.
From my personal experience, I never had any onwards experiences, and I felt fairly safe for myself. But I think like any region, any part of the world, be it the UK, be it the States, or any part of Asia, be it Sri Lanka, if you're at the wrong place, wrong time,
Correct.
and if you're in an area or place where you're not supposed to be, you will get into trouble.
Okay.
And apart from that, I didn't feel that there were any issues there. But it's again being sensible, and wherever you are in the world, you have to be sensible, and that's just general advice I would give anyone.
Right. Have you felt left out as a racial discrimination or discrimination from your gender or anything like that in this part?
I certainly wasn't discriminated for my gender. However, I didn't experience any direct difficulties when I was there. But once again, what I would say would be that you just have to be sensible.
Correct.
And not be in the wrong place
At the wrong time.
when you know there's obvious trouble. You don't want to go there and walk into that. Apart from that, and it's a bit of a learning curve, I guess, as a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old, you're still learning skills, life skills.
Yes.
And it's a great opportunity to learn life skills.
Great.
And that's how I took it.
We have Dr. Udai Kandalama here, who is from Ananda College, gets selected to the Vitebsk State Medical University, and he graduates at the year 2005. Now from there onwards, let's see what happens to him. So Dr. Udai, you graduated, And how did you manage to get into the UK system of the medical programs? Can you tell us your experience and what students will go through, and probably what you have also gone through in doing the entrance exams, as well as why exactly did you look into England?
Yeah, absolutely, Indikap. As I said in the beginning, I always had a goal from day one. I knew I had to do equivalence exams, foreign equivalence exams, be it Access Scene, PLAB, USMLE, and I actually geared myself particularly towards the PLAB because I have lots of family in the UK and lots of medical family in the UK.
Okay.
So it's something that I wanted to experience and work. It was a place that I wanted to work. So as soon as I finished my degree, the first thing that I did was contacted the General Medical Council of the UK.
Okay. The GMC.
The GMC,
right.
And found out about the procedure for applying for PLAB. I already knew about PLAB exam and what it consisted of because I'd done my research beforehand, but I just wanted to find out when the exams were and you know what sort of procedures, what sort of documents you needed.
Okay.
And once I found out everything that I needed, I left to the UK and I submitted all my documents,
right.
and which were adequate for them. Then I registered myself for doing the PLAB exam,
Okay.
which is an equivalence exam to register yourself as a medical practitioner in the United Kingdom.
Right. And did you go to any preparatory classes for that?
Yes, I did. Apart from having prepared myself for the exams as I was studying, I went to a preparatory course which was specifically focusing on the PLAB exam.
Yes.
The PLAB exam happens in two stages.
Okay.
The first stage is an MCQ paper,
Okay.
which has both preclinical subjects and some
Right.
clinical subjects,
Right.
and you have to pass that
Right.
paper before you
Right.
go to part 2.
And does this happen only in England?
No, I know that part 1 of the PLAB actually occurs in Singapore.
Okay, great.
And for people who come from Asia, it just makes their lives much more
Yes.
easier. And part 2 usually happens in the United Kingdom,
Okay.
unless they've made any changes to that. I'm not
Right.
aware of it being anywhere else.
Right. So what's tested in PLAB 2?
PLAB 2 is an OSCE,
Okay.
so it's testing your clinical knowledge,
Right.
your knowledge about seeing patients,
Okay.
diagnosing, and procedures.
Right.
And in particular, something that they look at is communication skills.
Okay.
That is something that they emphasize on, and in all UK exams,
Right.
be it MRCP, starting from PLAB to all the higher degrees in medicine, they always emphasize on communication skills.
Right. So your initial training of your MD at the Vitebsk State Medical University was a very good foundation for your PLAB exams as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I passed my PLAB.
First try.
Yeah. So all I can say is, that's testament to
Exactly.
the fact that I had absolutely no problems with the knowledge base that I had, like I mentioned previously, it was something that I geared myself and I was focused towards doing.
Right.
I think that helped me also, but in aspects of getting that knowledge, there was absolutely no problem.
Right. So what happens to you as a graduate now? You finish your PLAB exams and you get the license to practice in England. Now what are you heading after that?
So after I finished my PLAB exam, I was registered with the General Medical Council,
Yes.
with the license to practice,
Right.
and I then applied for their internship program,
Okay.
which is called the Foundation Program.
Okay.
This consists of 2 years.
Right.
The first year typically having general medicine and general surgery. The second year might be a combination of various clinical subjects.
Okay.
In my particular year, second year, I did accident and emergency medicine,
Okay.
cardiology,
Right.
and psychiatry.
Right. And what happens to the specialization which happens after that?
So once you finish your foundation years, which is the 2 years,
right?
which is the internship period,
Okay.
you apply for
Right.
specialist training.
Okay.
So you decide during your foundation years what you want to be. Do you want to be a general surgeon? Do you want to be a psychiatrist? Do you want to be a pediatrician? Do you want to be a GP?
Right.
And they have separate royal colleges for that.
Right.
And once you decide what you want to specialize in, you apply for those posts.
Okay.
And there's an interview process that you have to go through.
Okay.
And if you're successful in the interview process, you're chosen to do that specialist training.
So, Dr. Udai, while you were studying, there are some students who actually have been confused in up to what level are they going to do their studies after completing their MD program. So they sometimes are focused on doing clinicals or going into research. What advice or what do you think students should take part regarding this?
I think it's a good question because that's something that cropped up in my career also.
Right.
As I finished my foundation training and I became I went into my specialist training in psychiatry.
Okay.
I finished 3 years of psychiatric training as a junior trainee,
Right.
by which time I had completed my MRC Psych
Okay.
exam, which is the membership of the Royal
It's a
College of
membership,
Psychiatry. And because I had that question whether I wanted to pursue an academic career or did I want to be a clinician, I worked in Cardiff University
Okay.
in Wales as a clinical research fellow with the National Centre for Mental Health.
Right.
And that gave me a fantastic opportunity to experience firsthand an academic's life.
Okay.
And during that period, I completed a master's degree
Okay.
in psychiatry also. And then I decided that although I liked the academic life, although I liked research, I missed patients.
Okay.
I miss seeing patients. I miss communicating with patients and doing what I really felt doing as a doctor, helping people.
Right.
So then I applied for a job that came up in Wales, which happens once in 4 years.
Okay.
There's only one job in Wales,
Okay.
which is a clinical academic post
Right.
as a higher trainee, as a
Right.
registrar. I fared particularly well in that interview,
Okay.
given the fact that most of the other trainees, well, all the other trainees were local trainees which had finished university in the UK
Okay.
and they trained up in the UK. And I was the only foreign graduate,
Okay.
or IMG as they call it. And I managed to secure a post as a clinical lecturer
Okay.
at Swansea University. And I am essentially a clinical academic psychiatric trainee.
Right.
and
Congrats
registrar.
for you for going through that tedious process probably.
Thank you.
Right. So there is an attitude regarding students who are looking at research or to become clinicians. At what part of their career do they select? Because some students are just after their A-levels and they are trying to do their selection at that time. That's one question. And the second is, by chance, by default, when you do research, are you moving away from patients? Because there are some students who don't like to see patients. What is it?
I think deciding whether you want to be academic or not
Yeah.
after your A-levels is,
Too
I
early.
would say, very premature.
Okay.
Because first thing is you're not having enough life experience, from my experience.
Correct.
You don't have enough experience in the subject. You're unable to decide what you want to do without experiencing that.
Okay.
You must experience what you want to do first before you decide, I'm definitely going to do this and this is what I'm going to do research in.
Right.
So doing a medical degree, preparing yourself for it for a couple of years gives you that opportunity to actually decide, I think I've seen enough to think that I'm going to do this. And also, as you're doing a medical degree, you meet professionals who are doing academic work.
Okay.
And you get to work with people who are clinical academics, who are academics, researchers. That's the way to learn and find out whether that's what you want to pursue. But I would definitely say thinking about that after A levels, or in your first year in medical school, is probably somewhat premature.
And are these students who like to become research, do they go away from seeing patients?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think I am the example for that.
Okay.
I'm a clinical academic trainee.
Right.
I'm a senior registrar.
Right.
I'm a clinical lecturer in Swansea University, and I'm also completing an MD, which is equivalent to a medical PhD in research. And I'm also, like I said, I also see patients in outpatient clinics in Swansea.
Okay. And your specialization was on?
So I'm a psychiatrist. So my specialization is in psychiatry. I have a particular interest in schizophrenia, and e-databases.
So Dr. Udai, when you were doing your internship in England, were you paid for your internship, or how was it?
Absolutely. I was on full pay.
Full pay?
From my first year to my second. And it continues into specialist training until you become a consultant.
Wow. So that's a good exposure. I think you're trying to get there in big hospitals as well, yeah?
Absolutely. The particular key is if you've once again got areas that you're interested in, you can go and work in those areas.
Right.
I'll give you a very small example of psychiatry.
Yes.
If you've got an interest, Maudsley in London is world renowned for psychiatric care, and you can become a trainee in Maudsley. That would give you all the exposure you need.
Dr. Udai, what have you got to say about the salary scales for the benefit of our viewers who will be joining with us? How is the salary scale categorized and segmented into different categories of doctors in England?
So the salary scale system is slightly complicated in the UK, and it's difficult to say that this particular person is going to get this much and everyone's going to get that.
Okay.
The salary scale system works with basic pay, which ranges from about £25,000 to £30,000 a year.
Okay.
And added on to that, for the amount of on-call work, out-of-hours work you do, you get paid more.
Right.
So it can, depending on how much out-of-hours work, on-call work you do, it can go up to right up to 50,000 or more than that as a junior trainee.
Okay.
Then as you increase in seniority, your pay scale, your basic pay keeps on increasing. And at a senior registrar level, you're almost at £60,000 a year.
Okay.
And as a consultant, you start off on £75,000 a year to almost £120,000 a year.
Okay.
So it all depends on the amount of work you do, particularly the out-of-hours work you do, and the amount of responsibilities you have.
Great. Now, Doctor, just before we go into the final few segments of this, I'm sure you have selected England as your final destination. You would have come across a lot of friends of yours, your own batchmates from the Viteb State Medical University, who has probably gone to different other countries. What have you in short got to say about their exposure, probably in Australia, Middle East, United States? What was their probably feedback after they completed their degree at the Viteb State Medical University?
I think I can tell that a few people I know are in the States.
Okay.
There's definitely a few in Australia.
Okay.
There's one or two in the UK.
Okay.
And the others are in Asia, in India, in Nepal. So for the people who've been in the States, in particular, I know that they've once again they were very focused as medical students, and they geared themselves up for those exams, and they had no problems in passing those exams and working there and doing their residency programs. And their experience has been absolutely positive. They, you still talk about it. They still talk about the kind of clinical exposure we had when we were there, the kind of teachers we had, which I still remember them, by their names, their first names, their surnames. I just remember all of them so clearly. And the reason for that is because they created an impression on you, and that's a long-lasting impression. My livelihood is thanks to them. And my career, although I'm at this point, my start was there, and I'm always going to be very grateful to my alma mater, which is Vitebsk State Medical University.
Indeed. So this is a proof that if you study in the Vitebsk State Medical University, the avenues are open out there, and we have one of the living proofs in front of us here. Finally, before we conclude, what is your advice for young aspiring students to take you probably as a role model, and how do they mold their career in selecting a good university, and how do you encourage students to become doctors?
I think first of all, you have to know whether you want to be a doctor or not, because it's a different profession. It's a very altruistic profession, and it takes a lot of commitment and hard work. And once you figure that out, everything else falls into its place. When you're picking a university, I think it's important to find out people who've gone through that process, who've been in that university, and to find out whether they're successful, whether they're unsuccessful, and create your own idea about what you expect from that university. And even when you're in university, no matter where you are in the world, it's what kind of work you put in, what kind of enthusiasm you have, what kind of motivation you have that actually spurs you through life. I can tell that because I'm a clinical lecturer at Swansea University, and I see UK medical students and I teach them, and I can tell you that even in a fantastic university like Swansea University, which is the 6th best in the UK, I have students who are not interested in studying and who lag behind, and students who are brilliant and they really force themselves to do things, and they're enthusiastic. And it's that enthusiasm that really drives you, no matter where you are in the world. And I can tell you that I'm that example for myself, certainly, that it doesn't matter where you are, where you complete your degree from in the world, as long as you're enthusiastic, as long as you've got your focus right, as long as you know what you're doing, and you make that right effort and you're hardworking, there's nothing that can stop you.
Right, great. And one more last question. A lot of people are concerned about the fees they pay at the Vitebsk State Medical University. Substantially, it's quite low. Some people misunderstand this, compromising it with the quality, in fact. What have you got to say about the quality of this university in comparison to the price which you pay?
I think when you talk about the quality of the university, my experience is, again, from what I've done in my life, and not just what I've done in my life, but what my colleagues who were together in university, they've done. Most of them are consultants or senior registrars, based all over the world and doing really good work, pass all their exams, and if that's not testament enough where we are today and what we're doing, I don't think there's anything else that you need to know about the quality of the university. I think it's not a problem at all. The quality is not a problem. It's about your motivation and your enthusiasm. If it's there, the quality will always be there. And university has been a fantastic knowledge base certainly for me to base my career on. And like I said, I'm nothing but grateful to the university for giving me that.
Indeed. So that was Dr. Udai Kandalama, who has joined us all the way from UK. He has come here and shared his views. And Doctor, thank you very much for the time which you have given us.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
Thank you.
And this ends up this particular segment of introducing one of our medical graduates. And if you have further questions or you want to contact us, you can contact us through this channel where the video is uploaded. So until we meet again with another graduate from our own universities, I wish everyone to have a pleasant day. Thank you very much.